Thank you for joining us. A warm welcome to you to the morning call. Today is World Refugee Day, and the global refugee numbers are out. They don't make for a good reading, I must warn. The total number of refugees worldwide reached a record 70.8 million by the end of 2018. An alarming statistics released by the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR. That means almost 1% of humanity uprooted from its residence of choice and made to settle elsewhere, most likely unable to have a home of their own and reliant on the international community for support, sustenance, or assistance. So what has been the case in Africa or for Africa? The story you're about to see that has to do with the Sierra refugees finding shelter in Cameroon serves as an example of the situation many have found themselves on the continent.
Well, Jerry, as the world celebrates World Refugee Day today, Thursday, June 20, we are launching the debate on the refugee crisis in Africa. David Matsine is a researcher at Amnesty International for Mozambique and Angola. He joins us online from Johannesburg in South Africa to discuss this. Good morning, David. What are the biggest drivers of refugee crisis like this? Is it politics, famine, or climate change?
The main drivers have traditionally been, conflict and precarious economic and social living conditions. They have driven lots of people in their thousands from, one country to another, to many different other countries around the world. In the experience of Mozambique, specifically with the case that we are talking about, these people come from the Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, and Ethiopia. And we know that in these countries, we've had a lot of conflict. And so these conflicts have driven their citizens out of these countries to all over the world. And here in Southern Africa, we have many refugees that have been driven out of their country. Mozambique is a case in point where we've received refugees from all over the continent, especially in the Great Lakes and the Horn of Africa. And what has happened is they have been arrested without any reasons why they're being arrested, without any arrest warrant, and some of them have been deported back to the DRC, and they were refused entry because, according to the immigration officials in the DRC in Kinshasa, there was no proof that they were Congolese citizens, so they were sent back to Mozambique and they were put back in prison.
Let's talk about how refugees are treated, often treated in the countries that they run to. Is there safety at all in the Mozambique case?
In most cases, refugees have lived harmoniously with the citizens of the hosting countries, for the most part. But in times of civil strife, of economic crisis, we have tended to see the host countries to begin to vilify refugees and asylum seekers, scapegoating them and blaming them for economic crisis, for unemployment, for high rises of the increasing rates of crime. We have seen that happening in Southern Africa, and Mozambique is no exception, except that in this case, the Mozambican government has not stated any reasons whatsoever why they have arrested these men and women and sought to deport them. That's why we would like the Mozambican government to release them unconditionally and immediately. And we would like to remind the Mozambican government to respect the international human rights standards to which they are signatory, abide by them, protect refugees' rights within their territory.
David, the UN says the refugee burden is mostly shouldered by poor countries and has urged support for such countries. What kind of support do these countries need?
Political crises, conflict, precarious living conditions, those tend to be, the definitions of poor countries. And it's from these poor countries that we receive refugees. And most of these refugees flee to the nearest countries, which are also poor countries. So poor countries host the vast number of refugees in the world. And these poor countries have little capacity to support refugees in terms of protecting and fulfilling their social, economic, and cultural rights. So it's incumbent upon the international community, the United Nations, and other international organizations to provide aid to these poor countries so that they may be able to provide and fulfill economic, social, and cultural rights of the refugees that they are hosting in their territory. However, we urge these poor countries, particularly Mozambique in this case, to do whatever they can within their means to protect the rights of the refugees. They can at least respect the rights and let them free instead of harassing and persecuting them, arresting and jailing them without any reasons. That is the least they can do